Hey, yeah, this is Sydney, and I am here to talk us through the Astro weather of November 19th to 25th, 2025. Now, I think that this week is going to be crazy, like wild. Uh, why are we incarnated here sort of week? We have a lot of really interesting transits and a really, really powerful new moon to kick off this astrological time frame that I am talking about. So, before we get into it, I really hope that you will like and subscribe and perhaps think about becoming one of my clients. My schedule has some openings and I would love to meet you. Okay, so some of the highlights for this week, for this time frame that I'm speaking about. November 19th, we have a new moon in Scorpio at 28 degrees. I'm going to dig into that in a bit, so don't freak out. We are going to get a Kazemi just after that, early in the morning of November 20th. This one I'm very excited about because it is the second of 5 sextiles. We have Uranus sextile Neptune. These are big generational sextiles. This is the second of 5. And after these 5 are done, which will be complete in 2027, it doesn't happen again for another 140 years. I think it's, yeah, I wrote it down. 2137. So these are big, big, big transits. I will talk about that a little bit more as well. We're going to get the sun going into Sagittarius. We're going to get Mercury trine Jupiter, trine Saturn, while in the retrograde phase. I think these are going to be some nice kind of stabilizing and also expansive energies, maybe about previous ideas that we've had. I will talk about that more as we come up to it. That will be on November 22nd. We're going to get the sun sextile Pluto on November 23rd. We're going to get Venus conjunct Mercury on November 24th. And those are the big ones. Those are the biggies, right? So it's kind of as if every single day that this time frame is being spoken about, we have kind of a bigger happening for the planets in the sky. Now, we have to remember that not all aspects pertain to you in your chart. It can just be happening around you, happening to the people that you love, happening to the country that we live in. Super great, super fun, fantastic to be here. But it is also good to have some sort of idea about what your chart looks like and the various houses. So if I say the new moon is going to be happening at 28 Scorpio, we know what house that is going to be happening in. So for instance, I'm a Virgo rising. So this new moon in Scorpio is going to be happening in my 3rd house, but because of the interplay of planets and everything, it is also going to be impacting my 9th house. So in that 3rd and 9th axis, we know that this has to do with right brain, left brain, thoughts and beliefs, communication, religion, all sorts of stuff that have to do with those sorts of ideas. And then we take into account how those planets that are interplaying with the new moon are being impacted. And that's when you would potentially bring in an astrologer to talk to you about how things are really happening in your chart so that we don't freak ourselves out and think that we're all going to die. That's when an astrologer comes in and says, you're not going to die, but things are important, or this particular transit can be very impactful and important to you to learn and grow, right? So all that to say is I'm going to put up a chart. We're going to go through the days, day by day. And if you're interested in having this be kind of a bit by bit, one day at a time, I do have this up on TikTok, my Facebook, Instagram. So if you just want the day by days and you don't necessarily want to interact with YouTube, that's totally fine. The links are in the description below. And I also have timestamps to go from day to day as well, because I love all of you. Okay, let's put up a chart. We are looking at Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. That is Mercury's day, we need to remember that Mercury is still retrograde. And on this day, we have a very anaretic, critical Mercury sitting at 29 degrees Scorpio. On this day in particular, too, we need to remember that we're having a new moon, right? So, and that new moon is not going to occur until 10:47 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is up for California because that's where I am. So you will see here on the screen, we have the moon, the sun, and Mercury all kicking it up at the top of the chart for Oakland, for California, but not necessarily for other places. But know that there's an influx of scorpionic energy in the sky. We still have this grand water trine that is pretty operational between the planets in Scorpio, the planets in Pisces, and the planets in Cancer, or the planet in Cancer. We do not have really any Earth happening for this week until we have the moon going into Capricorn. So we need to know that we're probably not feeling very grounded. Things are feeling really emotional, really passionate, really heady, like heart-filled, gut-wrenching perhaps, but we're not necessarily feeling grounded in reality. This is a reminder to all of us that we do need to practice calmness and stability and touching grass. That Uranus in Taurus, retrograde at the very anaretic degree, is not doing anything to help us feel stable. In fact, the Uranus in Taurus in this earth sign is really trying to shake up and destabilize what we consider to be like reality or safety or stability or security, right? So early in the morning, we get Mercury opposite Uranus. This is going to happen at that anaretic 29th degree. It's at 3:44 a.m., but this energy is going to hold because it is also a part of the new moon. So really this applies. And this can be about information suddenly breaking free, coming to light. You're aware of something that has to do potentially with security and stability. It has to do with money. It could have to do with technology because we have this Uranus in Taurus. It could be the sort of technology that has to factor into things that have to do with our money and stability and security, right? So we kind of try to blend all of those things together. And because of the opposition, that has it's like we hit some sort of wall or limit, right? We're like, whoa, this is what it is. This is the limit of what we have. And also it is awareness, me versus you, right? This also has the energy. I mean, I cannot imagine that we do not get information that really, really surprises us and shocks us for this new moon period. I would wonder what happened and if the planets are really not in the places that they are, telling us that there's something big that is going to kind of push us in a new direction. We have this we're still in this kite space, right? So it help us take off, help us go into some new direction. And a new direction that maybe sets us on a path of a different sort of stability, something that we're unfamiliar with at this time. Mercury trine Neptune is going to also happen. That's at 4:21 a.m. And this really gives us this visionary, imaginative space where the things that we are speaking and imagining, it feels like the imagination station. It feels like spinning fairy tales or speaking our dreams into some sort of sense of reality. This is very emotional, very intuitive. There's an intuitive telling and speaking that can come up at this time as well. But also know that things aren't, again, set into reality. This really has to do with the dream and spiritual space of it all, the feeling space of it all. Moon quincunx Chiron 1:10 p.m. We're going to need to make some sort of adjustment around the things that are wounding us, making us feel sensitive. We're going to need to go, okay, this is where the pokey spot goes. let's just kind of reset ourselves. And maybe this just means we need to take some sort of breath. We are in the very, very dark of the moon, right? It is about to be new. It is like winding down. We could be feeling tired. We could be feeling pretty exhausted, and sensitive as such, right? We get some nice stabilizing, kind of harmonizing feelings after this, potentially around the 4:30 to 5 p.m. time with Moon trine Jupiter retrograde, and Moon trine Saturn. So I think what this is trying to do is kind of give us, to me, it feels like a sense of apprehensive hope, a sense of like being able to get through the things that we need to get done, right? These are nice working trines, can get through it. But I don't, again, there's no earth happening for any of these aspects. So I think it just has to do with our feelings. So it's kind of good news, bad news bears. I think with the trine to Saturn, we could be feeling kind of maybe nostalgic. And the feeling isn't bad per se, but it's not happy. Let's put it that way. A little bit of like an Eeyore in some sort of way is kind of how I look at it, especially because the moon is in Scorpio. Not exactly the happiest moon. So if you're feeling the need to kind of figure out what your emotions are, to put a little bit of a lid on it because the cup overfloweth, I recommend that you do so. We're going to get this new moon at 10:47 p.m. Now this is going to be at 28 degrees Scorpio. I'm going to put up that chart here. So Scorpio new moon, 10:47 p.m., 28 degrees. It is a juicy, juicy, juicy new moon. First off, we have this stellium that has everything to do with scorpionic energy. It's regenerative. It is about elimination. It is about investigation. It is about taboo. It is about secrets. It is about retention. There is a deep, passionate, emotional sort of thing going on here. And this is a new beginning, right? We also have Mercury in a Cazimi phase with the sun, which is this like, it's a powerful point for Mercury to be in. And I really do think it's like the sun is kind of cracking open this Mercury in Scorpio, like with this of secrets. I think it has to do with shining the light on secrets. Secrets that have to do with power and control dynamics, have to do with, manipulation and obsession, and certainly about things that have to do with the taboo nature. We know what's going on in the news right now. If you're living in the States, we know that there are things about those freaking files. And this is kind of a perfect opportunity for this to happen. We know that there's supposed to be some sort of vote happening this week. Perfect opportunity for us to get some news is going to be around this new moon, which really the day before Tuesday, right? And also through Thursday, even Friday, as the moon is starting to kind of grow in light to pull this like new seed into something that is visible. So we have this Cazimi. It's this brilliance factor too that can happen here. And also we have all of this stellium. I want to say the black moon Lilith is also here, and she can be about like our darker nature and impulse and things like that. And I just think it's interesting that she's definitely here with this new moon energy. And I wonder if it has to do with like the rising up of a sort of like feminine vengeance about the ways that women, children, people have been manipulated and played with and harmed, and needing to get, I don't want to say like get her lick back, like, but there's some sort of like rage, vengeance kind of thing that I feel is coming up here. And I also very much think that because we have Mars square the nodes. Mars square the nodes in evolutionary standpoint talks about unresolved anger and rage. This is like what we fight for, fighting for our literal truth, what we believe in, right? There's something unresolved here that is going to be resolved. And this can mean that lots of anger and rage can come up at this time. This whole stellium here is either traditionally ruled by this Mars in Sagittarius, which is square the nodes, anger, passionate fire anger, or in modern rulership scheme, we have it ruled by this Pluto in Aquarius, power to the people. This new beginning is fueled by this idea of people collectively regaining their idea of power and taking care of each other. So, regardless, and yeah, regardless, Mars is a major player in this new moon. Pluto is. They are also talked about as like the lower and higher octave of this dynamic of like obsession, compulsion, of drive, of will, of our collective wound, how we go about doing the things that we need to do in order to not just heal ourselves, but to learn, right? And to grow. Pluto is definitely a player in this Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter situation. So we have this whole, it's like a bucket. It's like a bucket of energy of like heavier, systemic, cultural, judicial, planets, these planets that talk about these larger collective trends, all are talking to each other, saying it's time for us to shift and change and grow. It's time for us to expand in this way and to innovate in this way and to have a dream here and to create roots here, right? And to bring some sort of like deeper change, Pluto, into all of it so that we can rise, evolve in some sort of way. The other things about this new moon, it's in the 19th mansion. It has the nature of Mercury and Mars, which I think is absolutely fascinating because what Mars does is it cuts to the quick, right? It kills, right? It ceases things. It says stop. It fights. It has there's passion, there's an anger, there is a fury to it. And when we talk about Mercury, right, Mercury is curious and information and communication. So there can be, this is like the fighting words mansion for this new moon here to be hanging out in. Super great. I love it. It's auspicious for battle and besiegement. With this new moon, whatever we're planting, whatever seeds we're planting, whatever new thing is kind of coming up in this particular part of life, we need to be cautious of being overly aggressive or argumentative. I think it is a time for us to do the Scorpio thing, which is to kind of marinate, to kind of churn the complex structures of whatever we're trying to do to kind of get to literally the quick of it, the meat, the metal of it, and hopefully to eliminate all of the noise around what is the essential thing. Scorpio is about, transmutation, regeneration, transformation, certainly. And this is a space in our chart that we are transforming in a new way, probably with information coming to light that is going to force us or invite us, however we want to say it, to make some sort of changes in how we're doing something here in this part of life. I think that we're going to be feeling very fired up in emotional sorts of ways. I think it's very interesting that we really don't get to have the grounding energy of a lot of earth things going on, because in fact, I think that this chart is saying we don't get to have a realistic footing right now because we need to be connecting to our intuitiveness, to our feeling, to our dreaming capability, to our senses, like our internal spiritual senses, to determine and to discern what is right and wrong and how we want to show up in the world before we get to put our feet back on the ground. Going into November 20th, that is a Thursday, Jupiter's day. Jupiter days are good for engaging in spirituality, prayer, connecting with your higher power, whoever that is, things that help you learn on a larger scale, right? It isn't like learning a math equation. It's maybe sitting with some sort of philosophical idea or book for you to kind of expand Jupiter, our minds into new places. So today at 1:23 a.m. is when we get that cazimi, right? There's this brilliance point. The sun is like truly putting all of its light on this Mercury and Scorpio. And I really do think that there is something coming up, and it really does continue to carry through the light of the new moon. We are going to get the moon going into Sagittarius. That's at 2:25 a.m. So very, very early. And right prior to that, the moon is going to do a little trine to Neptune, intuitiveness, imaginativeness, wanting to kind of feel that comfortable space in which it's like liminal space where like the dream is kind of the thing that we can sink our teeth into. And then we get kind of a little shock, right? With that moon opposite Uranus at 1:24 a.m., something emotional, habit shift or break can happen here. So again, this energy from the new moon is really carrying over through November 20th as well. Moon is going to enter Sagittarius, so hopefully the mood's going to lighten up. Hopefully now we're in this more kind of expansive, we want to take off with this new energy that happened with the new moon before and kind of go off and take off into a new direction. We now become concerned with ideas of like freedom, right? Our personal freedom. What do we want to we left that over there with moon and Scorpio. Now we're going to go off and ride off into the sunset in our centaur legs. We can be more, hopefully a little bit more jovial, things hopefully will lighten up, but I do think that they will start to feel spicy very, very quickly, because we have to remember too that the moon, sorry about that. The moon is co-present now with Mars. Fired up. Okay. Of passionate feelings. This could be angry feelings. We still have Mars not even perfectly squaring the nodes yet. And so this becomes a choice point, and is becoming a choice point about how we utilize our anger, our righteous and self-righteous anger, in order to get things done in this world. We have to remember that the resolution node for this is going to be that south node in Virgo. So it's like maybe releasing the idea that we must sacrifice things that don't suit us, or there's something we told ourselves that we need to let go of. Maybe this is just releasing the idea of perfection. Maybe it's also releasing the idea of victimhood. I'm the victim here. And instead really going off and saying no, I can take care of myself. I can take care of my community. I can fight for what's right. There's something about that here, I think. So we get moon sextile Pluto, 5:52 a.m. We're going to wake up with the ability to go a bit deeper, a bit more powerfully. I think we're still feeling a lot, but I think it's more on the passionate tip rather than the super emotional tip. I think we have now kind of washed away some of that watery stuff, and now we're in steam land. Now we're in heat, right? Now we're with Sagittarius energy, was all about fire. We're going to get today being when Uranus and Neptune sextile for the second time in a row, August 28th of 2025. And this is the second one in a series of 5 sextiles. And then they won't do this again until 2137. And so we are now, I think, further into, and this is the sextile, I think this is very interesting, is going to be happening at a very critical anaretic degree of 29 Taurus, 29 Pisces. There is retrogradation happening here. Both planets are retrograde. So I'm wondering if there's like ideas that kind of came up around the last sextile, though it was at a different degree, certainly. But like something about the idea of what was being kind of created here, the opportunity that was being created here is now being presented to us again with that like reintegration or redoing, going over old territory. You know, this is the last time that we, you and me, babes, are going to see these last degrees of Pisces with Neptune, right? And also Uranus, because their orbits are so big. So it's really like, this is important. There's something important here. This can talk about, you know, dreams and innovations and surprising new developments having to do with things that have to do with spirituality, things that have to do with our survival nature. You know, I think about Pisces and Taurus, and I think about how Venus loves these signs. Venus being the planet that speaks to how we like get into union. It has to, what the things that we value, the things that we love, right? The things that we hold dear, the things we want to merge with. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of what happens as these sextiles continue through. But we know that there is a larger shift to our consciousness, I think, with the Neptunian dream and like subconsciousness even, and then Uranus, you know, having to do with technology, having to do with new different systems, can also have to do with earth and water and those systems. I don't know, I have to meditate a lot more on it, but I don't have a lot of time and I'm already talking a lot. Anyways, that is going to perfect today. After that, and remember, these planets are very slow, so it's going to stay within those degrees, especially because they're retrograde. They're moving very slow for a bit. So we need to really pay attention to like kind of what comes up for us collectively, especially in the realms of, and also maybe something pharmaceutical. Neptune has to do with drugs. Yeah. And Uranus technology. So drug technology, there's opportunity here. Maybe something comes forward that is going to radicalize and revolutionize the healthcare system, or how we do those things. Could happen too. Okay, I need to refocus. I'm so sorry. Mercury being in Sagittarius and retrograde has been a gnarly thing for me. I am a Virgo rising, so Mercury is my chart lord. And yeah, it's wild. We're going to get some cranky, sensitive energy happening in the evening. The moon is going to sesqui square Chiron and is going to sesqui square Jupiter. We need to be cautious of going overboard in order to do some sort of self-soothing, right? And this could be either being super defensive or reaching for things that we feel would be like very indulgent. I think we just need to be cautious because we're still coming off of the new moon energy. Friday, November 21st is Venus's day. We have Venus still in Scorpio, and while she is in her detriment in Scorpio, she doesn't have all of the resources she would need to be like chilled out and kind of cool as a cucumber. Now, Venus in Scorpio she is about like control. She wants to kind of crawl into your skin and like know everything about you in order for the unioning to be together. This is till death do us part energy, Venus and Scorpio, which I don't know, I find it kind of romantic. It's a goth Venus, right? It is. But she is still benefic. She still wants to do relationships in a really kind of intense and super passionate, there's complexity to how Venus is operating. And so I say today, engage in some complexity. Write is, co-present with Mercury. Write the deep, passionate poetry that, exposes all of your feelings, and then burn it, because like, why would you share that with anyone? That's crazy. So here we are. We don't have a lot of aspects today. We do, however, enter Sagittarius season. Prior to that, though, at 3:12 a.m., we are going to get that moon conjunct Mars aspect, which really does say passionate, angry, spicy, very spicy. There is I fight for my truths and beliefs. What I feel is real. What you feel, not so much. What I feel is the truth. And we need to be cautious of this on this day. Very, very cautious. We still have Mars square the nodes. There's some unresolved anger that needs to be grappled with and dealt with, and maybe we need to release something. The resolution node is that south node in Virgo, to release the pressure of maybe perfection or like over-analysis or anxiety around how we express our anger. Could be a little bit of something there. We're at a choice point in how we express our anger. Choose wisely. Maybe I think about the other side of things, which would be the Gemini part of a chart. So it could be thinking before you preach. Maybe externally processing in ways that are non-confrontational and accept, maybe being curious about the ways that we're feeling angry instead of just leaping into the fire. Curious and asking ourselves why, right? That sort of thing as we're feeling real fired up, real spicy. We're going to get the sun opposite Uranus. This definitely could be some sort of surprising something, right? It's as if the sun in its opposition to Uranus is letting or allowing Uranus to kind of fully shine its light, because the sun is the furthest away that it can get to it, right? There is a revealing of something. So again, when we were talking about this sextile between Neptune and Uranus, we also have this trine between the sun and Neptune that is happening simultaneously. So there's this energy of revealing and flow, this energy of revealing something shocking and surprising, and then flowing into some sort of new or visionary space. There's something here that has to do with the sun shining its light on these things in our life. It's an interesting energy, and I think it just wakes up the sextile being perfect yesterday. So there could be something that we see. We get to actually see the light shines up. The sun enters Sag 5:35 p.m. Sagittarius energy. can be fun, can be a bit escapist, can be all about truth, right? But this isn't like necessarily objective truth, though I think that there can be definitely a try for that, but often it ends up being kind of a subjective truth. This is my truth. This is what I'm willing to fight for. Now we're entering the sign that has to do with like other cultures and travel and overseas travel, flight, right? Things that you would fly across the ocean for, long distance travel, certainly philosophy, higher education, law, like not the act of working within fairness and balance, but literally the institution of law, kind of here. And so when I meet a sun in Sag, I say, okay, so like they're trying to, or at least this life is growing into a space of them really being more expansive and open-minded and hopefully philosophical and maybe even a little bit playful. There can be some escapism that happens with a Sagittarius, and just as a little ribbing, it's one of the funny names that we call a Sagittarius is a Sagittariist, and they can get really self-righteous and like their way or the highway. And so we just need to be careful of that energy. So wherever Sag is in your chart, there is a light shining on this part of life. Like, hey, let's expand here. Let's spend a month hanging out in this space, right? Oh, Saturday, November 22nd is Saturn's day. Now we have Saturn in Pisces. He's not liking it or loving it too much. He doesn't really have any essential dignity here. So he's kind of like, hey, I'm out of my water here, which can mean, there's like an energy of feeling a little bit down or depressed or a little bit mopey because like you don't have everything you need to get things done. Needless to say, Saturn's days are good for doing the work. Do the work. Do the chores, right? Complete the tasks. Clean the house. Do the work. So, all that to say, do the work. It's been very interesting to watch as Saturn's gone back into Pisces that like the whales were good again. The whales are doing all sorts of crazy stuff in the oceans that we're getting to see, and it's interesting, certainly. Good day to work on the thing that you're wanting to master, or the thing that you consider to be a challenge or a limit or some sort of test. Work on those things. So for the 22nd, we have some aspects here. I think that we're going to wake up in a space where we're feeling a bit challenged. We have the moon square Saturn. That's going to happen at 5:13 a.m. This could be just feeling like a Debbie Downer. This could be, just feeling, blue, challenged, weight on our emotional shoulders. We have more to grapple with than we want to. So just know moon transits are fast. Try to keep it moving. We're going to have Mercury trine Saturn at 10:45 a.m., Mercury retrograde, and this is going to happen at 25 degrees of Scorpio and Pisces. This is, watery, intuitive, flowing energy. Mercury trine Saturn is like being able to really make good plans. And we like that, right? So maybe it's whatever was seeded with the new moon. And now we're able to really know and feel what our plans are in order to take that forward. There is a sort of authority of thought or how we're speaking about things. This is definitely, when I see Mercury trine Saturn, it gives like daddy said what they said and they meant it sort of energy. This is, you can intellectually stand on your business with, the aspect of Mercury trine Saturn. So if you need to have a more serious sort of conversation, I would recommend maybe using this transit for the day. Something where maybe you need to express yourself, you need to express something that is of an emotional nature, and you need a little bit of a stabilizing factor. We're going to use Saturn for that. So if you need to have a more serious conversation that might cause you to feel overly emotional, but you need to kind of rein it in to do it, Mercury trine Saturn. We're going to need to make some sort of sudden emotional adjustment at 1:39 p.m. with Moon quincunx Uranus. It could just be something surprising that makes us want to go, okay, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to take off. I'm going to go somewhere else. We get the Moon square Neptune at 1:47 p.m. So there's something emotionally just jarring and uncomfortable really kind of seems to rear its head, starting in the 1 p.m. through to the 2 p.m. time with the moon touching these planets. And it's also going to wake up that sextile between Uranus and Neptune. However, it is potentially going to cause us to feel a little bit overwhelmed, maybe a little bit disillusioned with what's being shown to us. And maybe we just kind of want to check out and get away and suddenly escape somehow. But just know, again, moon aspects are quick. So try to chill out. 2:52 p.m., we're going to get the moon entering Capricorn. This is the place of the moon's detriment. And the moon goes, I guess, fuck it, I'll do it, right? It doesn't have the resources to be taken care of in the ways that it needs to. And so it says, I'm going to be my own boss, babe. I'm going to go take care of it myself. The moon entering Capricorn becomes a moon that has the feeling of, I need to achieve this, and I'm going to achieve it all on my own. I'm going to hold things to myself. I'm going to be a little bit set aside, a little bit walled off here. I don't need to share with you about how I'm feeling. What matters is the work gets done, is kind of the moon in Capricorn sort of vibe, brings that sort of vibe to the table. Mercury is going to trine Jupiter at 3:37 p.m. I think this is a really good time to kind of engage with expanding your mind, man. Kind of get into the feeling of things. So we have Mercury and Jupiter in this trine. It's an opening. Yeah. I'll have to think about that. I think it is an opening disseminating trine. So this is really about the idea, the creativity of things, right? This is a Leo shaped trine. It is creative and I'm going to get this thing done. So there could be, new ideas that also of maybe a psychological or emotional nature, because we do have Mercury and Scorpio trine the Jupiter in Cancer. Both of them are retrograde. This is more kind of in an internal realization, I think, with the retrograde action. Both of these planets, Mercury and Jupiter, are in yin signs. There is a internal receptive sort of thing going on here. There could just mean that the ideas kind of are turning inside, are kind of unlocking some of our emotional nature or maybe our intuitive nature, and we kind of know how we want to expand going forward. Maybe this has to do with recalling and resettling in on an idea that we had before that didn't quite click yet, and now it can. This could be revisiting old conversations and ideas as well. That all to say, I think that's a really beautiful, supportive energy to engage with things that might need your attention of a psychological nature, have to do with conversations. I think today, specifically this Saturday, is a good day. So long as you can keep your emotions in check, is a good day to have the sorts of conversations that you want to have with other people that might be a bit vulnerable, and also are with the generosity of like, but I also want to move forward from here. November 23rd is Sunday. Sunday is the sun's day, right? Creativity, pleasure, rest. There's something about, just kind of being. I am energy, right? I am here. I am present. We have the sun in Sagittarius. So it's like engaging in anything that we feel expands our soul, our hearts, our minds, just who we are, right? I like that the sun is back in a fire sign. It has triplicity here. It likes being in Sagittarius. It's a nice place for it to be. So yay. Hopefully, all things considered, now that we have a little bit more fire and a little less water in the sky, just a little bit less water in the sky, now the emotions are starting to come into a more maybe passionate, but also a little bit more of a settled space, especially because we do have that moon in Capricorn really emotionally holding us down. Goddess willing. I don't have a lot of aspects today, but we do have the sun in Sag, happy in Sag, sextiling Pluto. So there is an intensity to this day and to this sun shining, right? There could be something, using the archetypes of Sagittarius and Aquarius, there's something very like social, philosophical, kind of utopian about this sextile. This is the day that you wanted to like really kind of stand in your presence, to use your presence to get something done. This would be a good opportunity. The sextile is an opportunity, right? It's not a guarantee, but you have the option to maybe share your ideas in a way that feels like there's some gravitas, there's some meat to the matter of it all. The sun is in a closing last quarter sextile to Pluto, so it's like I'm sharing these ideas in order for us to make some changes here. It's like, here's my philosophies, here's what I believe, and this is how we can change society, sort of thing. Just passionate. There's a passion here that could be really quite lovely. It also just kind of helps us, Pluto and with the sun is like, what are we shedding here? What are you willing to let go of, sun, for you to like really fully like shine the light? Like Pluto brings us down to hell and says, these are your hell bits. Get rid of them. And you're like, I don't want to get rid of my hell bits. But you're like, okay, I guess I will. So I feel like there's like a willingness to shed in order to shine in a better way. We then, last aspect of the day, I mean, there's not really a lot going on here. I think we're going to feel pretty emotionally in a good space until we get to 7:26 p.m. We have the moon session square Uranus. There can be some anxiety that comes up, and suddenly feeling very, very uncomfortable for some reason, right? Something kind of rears its head and you go, whoa, I didn't know. I think it feels a little bit like being blindsided, perhaps. But there's not a lot going on this day. And I think maybe it has to do with the fact that with the new moon days prior, now there's like a more of a settling in sort of energy. We have like really done the work in the previous days. And so we need to kind of have this day of, okay, So I think it's a great thing that there's not a lot of aspects today, though we can maybe feel like a little bit like we're floating, liminal space, don't really know what to do because we don't have a lot to kind of keep pushing us forward to get everything done. So if you can rest today, I think this is a really good day to do it. Monday, November 24th is the moon's day. Still got the moon in Capricorn, holding it down, boss babe, ambitious, interested in taking action in order to achieve its goals. Kind of a rule-abiding moon in Capricorn. Kind of. It's interested in stability and kind of holding it down, like the words, creating a sort of stability even when it's uncomfortable. I love Capricorn energy. I love the business is business. We got to get to it. Strict. Moon in Capricorn folks might find that they had a strict parent that maybe potentially didn't give them all of the emotional comforts that they needed. And so they ended up going, well, I got to take care of myself because I'm not getting it from my parents here. Anyways, all that to say, Monday is the moon's day. So on this day, we don't have a ton of aspects, but we do have some. We have Mercury, quincunx Chiron 4:04 a.m., and this energy is going to be there in the day. So I think we need to be careful about how we communicate what hurts us, the sensitivities that we're having. I think that there could be a potential for us to strike out and say things that are deeply, deeply, deeply cutting and a bit, what is that word? Not seeing the whole picture, right? Or not seeing how it really impacts that one person, right? You just say it to make the point, and it's not great. The Mercury and Chiron are both ruled by that Mars in Sagittarius, which is squaring the nodes on this day. There's that cute little Mars, square the nodes. Here's the nodes here. So I think we just watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. No cutting. Do not cut with your words. Spicy. I think we're going to be feeling kind of wounded, really sensitive, a bit hurt, a bit unrecognized by folks. And as a result, we might lash out. I do not love that for any of us. And so let's not do it. We're going to get the moon sextile Venus. I think that's going to help the moon maybe feel a little better, but there's still, Venus is in Scorpio. There's still something here that's like, maybe we have this way that we want to go forward in how we share our values, share what we care about. It can be the moon sextile Venus is mostly pleasant. It's in signs that they don't love. The moon is in the sign or detriment, and the Venus is in sign or detriment. So this is like unresourced pleasantness. I don't know. It feels like reaching for the thing that isn't good for you, but it feels good in the moment. So, let's be careful about how we engage with that energy. Moon sextile Mercury. We have the ability to understand and to feel and speak in ways that are, I think, passionate and are true, but also cutting and quick. There is how we feel and how we're speaking are in alignment. We still have that quincunx from Mercury to Chiron. So we need to be careful about how we go about expressing these truths here. Moon square Chiron, sensitive, emotionally sensitive, I think feeling very unacknowledged. Moon opposite Jupiter at 4:12 p.m. or retrograde Jupiter, pardon. This is an emotional overfloweth and maybe even an emotional overreaction. And that reaction could also be a retention, right? It doesn't mean that the energy goes out. It could be that all of these feelings get in, but they're real big feelings, and we're just holding it down because the moon in Capricorn is just, so find healthy places to release this emotional energy from all of the sensitivities of the day and just of life. Moon sextile Saturn. I think this is, we're maybe feeling a little a little down, but also maybe a little bit more like capable of holding ourselves together, capable of figuring out and knowing what is really ours and what isn't, capable of taking care of ourselves and maybe in healthier ways, but don't quote me on it. At November 24th, 5:51 p.m., we're going to get Mercury conjunct Venus. Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus. So this is at 22 degrees. There is something here. It feels so investigative. I think it has to do with, maybe you have some sort of important conversation that has to do with how you feel in a relationship. It's like pouring your heart out. Mercury, Venus in a natal chart, when I see it, it's like the sweetness of your words, having a sweet mouth, a sweet talker. With Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, there could be some more obsessive things coming up or manipulative opportunities, people using their words to be manipulative in relationship. So they're, a little, it still is within this water trine that's really flowing, that's really having to do with, with the Jupiter trine. I'm hoping that it is kind of helping Mercury and Venus be a little bit more generous, a little bit happier, a little bit, it's kind of lending some of its good nature to the Scorpio part of our chart. It's kind of going, maybe a little less obsessive, but maybe a little like in its intensity, there is a sweetness here that we can interact with. But it could be a time for you to have a good, intense conversation around money, relationship in the evening. Tuesday, November 25th. Tuesday is Mars's day. Mars is still square the nodes. I think we're going to be dealing in Lilith is there too. Fun. Fantastic. Oh, well, we have a lot of Sag energy in the sky. We have the sun, we have Lilith, we have Mars, and we have Juno, the planet of partnering, wants to partner through what we believe, perhaps. This is fighting for what you believe in, what your truths are. And this can be the darker side of fighting for what you believe in. It's like no holds bar kind of feeling, perhaps. But there's some mutability in the sky, right? We have all of this Sag energy, all of this Pisces energy. We do have now some air coming in there, so we're now maybe using our minds a little bit better. Maybe we're thinking a little bit better, thinking a little bit deeper. Could be cute. We are going to get the moon trine Uranus at 12:51 a.m. This can be new ideas, new habits. It's going to happen at that 29th degree. I think it's going to wake up that new moon energy that happened earlier in the week. And I think it's also going to wake up that sextile. Maybe there's something, the sextile between Neptune and Uranus, maybe something comes out that encourages us to shift, to emotionally take on a new way of feeling. We get the moon sextile Neptune. This can feel really dreamy, imaginative, right? So the moon is going to be doing this cool thing with waking up the Uranus Neptile sextile through a trine and a sextile itself. So there is a generosity here. There is a flow. There is an ease. The moon is going to enter Aquarius at 2:15 a.m. Here's the moon. And as it does, it's going to conjunct Pluto. So this is going to bring intensity. This is going to bring, the moon in Aquarius is like this fixed air, right? It is cerebral, certainly. And people that have an Aquarius moon, there is like a over intellectualization of one's feelings, and then also thinking, well, everybody else's, what they're going through is more important than what I'm going through. I'm just going to intellectualize it and get rid of it, which can create kind of a trauma response or a detached from what they're really feeling, which kind of creates a little bit of a Spock moment here. So with Pluto, this brings up, I think, whatever those feelings are and says, okay, let's like be really aware of what those things are. Maybe we can get rid of some stuff here. Or also it creates a maybe over obsession with trying to figure out what we're really feeling. So there's an intensity here. There's a complexity here. It is asking for us to emotionally shift and transform in these moments when the moon goes into Aquarius. And also, I think people are feeling really, when the moon goes into Aquarius and it hits that Pluto, it's very like this emotional awareness that we are all really actually united. We're actually all this one organism that is independently acting. We become aware that like the power really is with the people. And that conjunction really does say like the people understand that the power is with us and not with other systems. Hopefully, if only it would hold forever. Venus quincunx Chiron can bring some stress to our relationships, to what we value, certainly to, finances. Something hurts in the pockets, having to make a sudden spending of something. And it could be emotional spending because we're feeling some sort of way. We're going to get the moon sextile the sun. I think that this is a really nice flowing energy. It kind of allows us to feel like we can move forward, get things done. We have some ideas and how we want to continue forward on our path with our intentions. It's in fire and air, so this has to do with ideas and communication. I like it. And then we're just going to get a series of quintiles from the moon to Mercury, Venus, and Chiron, which I think is just going to allow us to, have some genius of thought and feeling, and maybe even engage with a bit of healing after we've had what I think is a hell of a week. Use that sextile energy to like sit in the idea of it all. It's going to hold for the morning. We don't have any more Ptolemaic aspects for the day for Tuesday, the 25th. So instead, it's just like maybe whatever comes up that is the new idea, like really sit in it. And I think we also have the opportunity to really kind of sit in it because the moon is also with Pluto. All right. I got through it. We got through it. We're going to get through it. And thanks for joining me for this podcast, and take good care of yourself.